Ladies and gentlemen, give a big welcome to our three panellists, shall we, today. We've got Richard Sheehan, the Local Skills Improvement Project Director. That's right now, isn't it?
It is now, Carl,
Matt
yes.
Small from Aico, our host today. And then we've also got Debbie Kirkpatrick from RBSL, which is a partnership of companies. You tell us.
It's BAE Systems and Rheinmetall. So RBSL.
Which is in Telford, isn't it?
It is,
And it's a site that's been so many different names. Every time I go there, it seems to have a different
It
name,
has,
different
yes.
brand,
We rebranded a few times, or sort of joint ventures. We've been there since about 2019 now.
So three very different perspectives, really, I think, maybe on this this first part of this debate today. I want to maybe row back 3 or 4 weeks, which is what maybe started us thinking about this debate, and that was when a survey came out. In fact, it was the quarterly economic survey from Shropshire Chamber of Commerce, which ended up attracting national, even international headlines, didn't it? Because one of the findings that came out of this, I'll ask you, Richard, to comment maybe on this one first, was that there's some companies, particularly in the manufacturing and the engineering spaces, who are saying that they are reluctant to employ the youngest of young people now because of concerns over reliability. They're either not turning up for interview, or they come for the first week and then they decide they don't want to stick to the job anymore. And the headline really that grabbed the attention of everyone is some companies saying they're not now looking to recruit anyone under the age of 21. Just tell us a bit of the background to this.
Yes, Carl. Well, yeah, it came as a shock in one way that actually a business came out or businesses came out and actually said this. But then another way it didn't, because we've known for some time there's been some anxieties around the sort of the young people and their work ethic and what they will and won't do. And so, yeah, it was quite disappointing, I think, to see it highlighted. But in another way, I think it's really important that it is, because we can do something about it, or we can certainly try. And that takes us right back to sort of the school time, careers advice, mentoring. There's a whole raft of different things that can help prepare the young people better for the workplace, because of course they, quite often now their life is revolving around technology, and that's all through the day. And quite often it's not acceptable in the workplace to be doing stuff like that. So you might get a comment, well, oh no, I don't want that anymore. I have to say, there are some fantastic young people in the businesses across Shropshire. We cannot lose sight of the fact that that is the case. However, in a time when we are really struggling to fill vacancies across Shropshire and indeed nationally, the last thing we need is a group of individuals being effectively discriminated against for specific reasons that probably there is a fix about it. We just need to embrace it and be honest about it, because there's been a lack of honesty around the support that those people have had and need for some time.
Because it's one thing maybe people saying it anecdotally, yeah, we're a little bit worried, we've got some people and we're questioning their commitment. It's another thing when people feel strongly enough to actually put it down on paper in a survey, and it's then in the public record, isn't it? So it obviously, people's feelings are quite high on this at the moment.
Yeah, there's no question they are, and the survey's been around since 2009, so it is quarterly, as the clue's in the name. And so we've got trend analysis back to 2009 for all different types of subject matter. This is quite unique for this to come out in that environment. It is anonymous, so it does give people the opportunity to have a say that perhaps they might think twice about saying if they were being attached to it. And so I think it's a valuable lesson for everybody that actually there are major concerns around this. It's been spoken about for some time, but it's never actually appeared in a piece of research like that. And as you rightly say, it got national and international headlines. I think I ended up doing a BBC Radio Scotland interview on it. But I think, again, I'll go back to a point. There are some amazing young people across our county working in tremendous jobs and doing a fantastic job for the economy.
And we've got two companies here that believe in growing their own, don't they? So, I mean, Matt, from your point of view, just tell us a bit about the recruitment strategy here at Aico.
Yeah, so there's a mixed strategy, really. Apprenticeships do form part of that, but that's not our only method of recruitment. So we've been hiring apprentices since the 90s, but it's been more structured since around about 2018. So since 2018 to date, around about sort of 10 to 15% of the entire Aico workforce is made up of existing or previous apprentices. And just on the comments there made in that study, the survey, I'm quite shocked by that as well. I'm not sure whether that was one comment taken out of context, or just a massive generalisation, but our own experience of recruiting young people, we've been extremely surprised, and it's been a really successful means to filling skills gaps and shortages that we've had within the organisation.
Is it more about the importance of an employer understanding the young people that they're looking to try to recruit, you know, and knowing which buttons to push in terms of getting the best out of them? Then,
absolutely. I mean, the training providers that we work through across the county and outside of the county are fantastic. As part of that apprenticeship, you have mentors, you've got colleagues. It's about steering people. You've got to engage the people that are there to work. If people are left to their own devices and they're not managed and they're not supported, then maybe situations such as the one that Rich has commented on there, you know, can arise, but that's absolutely not the experience that we've...
When you're seeing young people coming up, are they kind of workplace ready, or do you think there's more work needs to be done at a younger age? It does vary. I would say that the adverts that we put out for the apprenticeship roles are the most applied for, so that we always get lots of applications. There is a real mix with the candidates that come in. So there are clearly some schools that are preparing, schools and colleges rather, that are preparing candidates for that interview, for, you know, the research, and that they're absolutely fantastic to interview. And as with any other role, and non-apprenticeship roles, there will always be those candidates that aren't, but it is improving. More work still needs to be done. Yeah. We've got a lot of engagement with schools and colleges across the county. We're heavily invested in mock interviews, in employment ready workshops, and I think that needs to continue. Yeah.
And Debbie, you were just saying to me a bit earlier that you've got a busy time at the moment. You've got some new apprentices about to come on stream as well. So much as we did with Matt, tell us a bit about, you know, your recruitment from your point of view.
Yes, I mean, we're very similar to yourself. We're very, very lucky that we have high volume for recruitment for our business, but I think that's a lot to do with the outreach we do in the local area. So we're based obviously in Telford, so we go, very similar to yourself, we go to the local schools, we have them into our sites. We offer work experience as well. We try and get them really geared up into our industry. We do as much as we possibly can, and that's really important. We also do the mock interviews as well, and I think that's really, really important for getting young people through the ranks to sort of see what we do and to get that real experience of what the working world looks like.
Because the survey itself, the Chamber survey, specifically mentioned manufacturing and engineering companies and the concerns, which is obviously, you know, right in your ballpark, isn't it?
It is,
Do you find that young people have got a clear enough understanding of what the jobs they're going to be doing at RBSL are actually like?
I think young people in general, and I say this from a parent as myself, I've got a 16-year-old daughter, so we've been looking at apprenticeship options and different things for her. So I think it's quite normal and natural that people of a young age don't know what they want to do, and that's absolutely fine to do that. So at RBSL, we're very good at encouraging sort of trying different things. So we put them on 6-month rotations. So I realised I didn't answer your earlier question. Yes, we have got the new apprentices coming in this afternoon. So we recruit for certain areas of the business, engineering, manufacturing, business admin and project management. We've had circumstances before where they've come in and thought, yes, I really want to be a project manager, but then when they've sort of, you know, looked at other things that we've put them in different areas, that they thought maybe engineering is more up their street. So it's about being fluid really and letting them kind of make their own pathway. And, you know, I have the same conversations with my daughter that, you know, you probably might start somewhere. It's good experience. It might not be where you spend the rest of your working life, but that's okay. And I think it's all about getting that experience and making sure they've got the tools to be able to do that. And at RBSL, we're very passionate about making sure that we talk to them, we invest in them, we want them to stay with us at the end of their apprenticeship. So, you know, it's important that we make sure we...
I remember when I was leaving school, it's so difficult to try and think about, you know, you might want to know what career you're going to go into. I was interested in media. There wasn't necessarily opportunities back then in Shropshire. But I guess for a young person as well, Richard, it's quite difficult to think of that career path as well. I know there's lots of help these days, but it's a daunting prospect trying to think of, you know, your long-term career.
I think it's very difficult. I think when I go back to my start of my employment, I was an engineering apprentice with Rolls-Royce, and in those days it was a case of, well, you're going to go to this one or that one.
That was it. Yeah.
and that was your choice. But there's so much awareness now of all the different roles within business, and of course, you know, the roles in business today are probably quite often will be very different in 12 months' time.
Yes.
And in 24 months' time, there's probably a load going to appear that actually don't even exist yet.
Yeah, things are changing, aren't they, so quick.
It is extraordinarily difficult. And I think the other thing we have to understand is in a rural community like we are, the logistics of moving around are quite difficult. So in Telford particularly, you do have a public transport structure. Okay, not the best, but it's darn sight better than market towns and others. And a lot of young people don't have access to their own transport. They either can't afford a car or they just haven't got one. And so it then becomes a challenge to get to work. And they'll go enthusiastically in the beginning, but, oh my gosh, a dark, wet day, I've got soaked on my bike and I don't really fancy this anymore. So I think there's a lot of barriers that we have to be aware of and overcome. And I think it's really important as well that I just emphasise, this is a response to a survey. This is not the voice of the chamber, and this is not the opinion of the chamber or me. This is what businesses have come out and told us. And it has been a trend for some time, but not as stark as we've just seen. But yeah, I think the careers side of things now is a real challenge. I think the educational establishments are very much geared towards academic achievement. There has been some shift towards some careers work and with the Careers and Enterprise Company and others, but it's not sufficient because the array of opportunity is vast, and the skills that you need to achieve what you might aspire to, there needs to be a very clear and precise delivery of information and guidance around that as well.
What about the idea of flexible working as well? I mean, Matt, young people, do they want, demand, expect, need flexible working, home working, hybrid working to get them engaged?
I think it varies. There are those people that want to be in the office, and there are those people who look around them. They look at their parents, they look at their friends, they look at those in college, and the wanting to be at home 1 day a week, 2 days a week is high on their priority list of dictating what roles it is that they choose. So,
and are you in a position to be quite flexible with your sector?
We aren't in the respect that we do have flexibility around hours and ways to accrue additional leave, but we've taken the decision that across the business that there is a requirement for the likes of the people within our operations team to be in here to service our customers. So we've taken the consistent approach that all teams will be here consistently 5 days a week. So that's not for everyone, completely appreciate that, but that's the decision that we've taken.
And we've got two businesses here that are both expanding businesses, and you're looking to recruit on a fairly regular basis, aren't you? Are you still finding that able to find the people that you need?
We are, yes. We are, yeah. So I think some of the points that Richard made there with regards to sort of transport links,
which is interesting.
That is quite a difficult one for younger people. Owning a car is expensive for one, but secondly, you can't drive a car until you're 17, and then you've gone through the cost of learning to drive a car. So when we've had people apply for roles, they've got here and we've asked them how are they going to be able to reliably commute to the office 4 days a week and 1 day a week to Shrewsbury, where likely they probably have to attend college or possibly Telford, and that then becomes problematic. But,
so where are people coming from to work at Aico at the moment, the younger people?
Predominantly, we've got sort of a 15-mile sort of commutable distance. I would say for the younger people, some of the older people live Shrewsbury, Wrexham, a little bit further afield. Yeah. But the cost of commuting has been increasing with
well,
increasing
isn't it? Especially
fuel,
bus fares and train fares and things like that, and Oswald Street not connected with a train station. You've got to go to Goodberry, so that is another hindrance, isn't it, really?
It is, and then the bus links that tie in with the train timetables doesn't necessarily get you to where you want, so you have to go into the centre of town to then get on a different bus to then bring you down to the industrial estate that doesn't necessarily come past where we are. So it's complicated, so that there does need to be a joining up of infrastructure, education, recruitment for people to be able to reliably.
See, Debbie, you don't know how lucky you are being in Telford, do you? You don't know how in terms of, from your point of view, RBSL, you've been in the headlines the last few months, won some pretty exciting contracts as well. So, and some of those, I imagine, involve quite specialist jobs, don't they? So are you still finding it? Do you have to cast your net further afield to find what you need?
We had a bit of a trickier patch a few months ago, trying to find sort of specialist engineers, etc. But we've got through that, and again, it's through our own sort of initiatives and reaching out to, you know, networking. We've got refer a friend schemes, etc. We're quite lucky because we offer hybrid working, so we offer that to our apprentices as well. So that helps us cast the net a little bit wider as well. So it depending on where they're going, some come in, you know, twice a week, some come in 3 days a week, some only come in once a week. It just depends on sort of its different roles and what's required and how often they need to come in. So we're quite lucky on that aspect.
Is that something that you're finding younger people particularly are asking for or expect then, or are they delighted when you tell them that that's what you offer anyway?
I think when we first came back from COVID, everyone sort of had this rush. They wanted to come back into the office. So you had half that didn't want to come in because they were used to being at home and enjoy being at home, and the other half who were just desperate to be around people. So with the apprentices, we say the first 6 months they have to be on site full time to build that element of trust as well, because obviously, you know, unfortunately there are people in the world that will, you know, break that trust and won't use the hybrid working correctly. So once we know that they know, you know, what they're doing and they're happy and that they're supported, then we offer that hybrid working. Some still come into the office all of the time and want to be around people and learn as much as they can. And I think, you know, some of the apprentices are quite young, so it's important they have that maturity from others to learn. But as a whole, you know, we're quite flexible, and that helps certainly with our recruitment. And I think people do want that, don't they? They're used to it from the COVID times, and you know the way that we work is different from a few years ago.
Because it occurred to me that I wondered whether one of the reasons that the survey had specifically mentioned manufacturing and engineering companies and issues around younger people is because when you're a company that's making things, it's harder to be flexible, isn't it, than maybe some other sectors?
Yeah, I mean, sort of the manufacturer, we work on a 4-day week, which is so even the apprentices are on a 4-day week, so that's a really good selling point for us as well on the operations side. So they work slightly longer in the week, but then obviously have Fridays off. So again, it's, you know, it's always changing, and I think because of all the work that we do out in the community, people have got a real buzz to come into us, hopefully. So we've just had a recent work experience weeks, which went really, really well, and they're already contacting me now, when are you opening for your vacancies for next year's apprenticeship. So we are very, very lucky, but that's because of the hard work that the team put in to make sure that we get that option.
You were mentioning there about work experience. I know Aico, we've just run a story on Shropshire Live on our business pages about how, you know, your work experience placements. Over 20 have taken part in work experience here recently, haven't they? They have, yeah. It's been a really fun initiative. You know, it really sort of lifts the building when you get that draft of young people come in. But what we've done something slightly different. So traditional work experience, you would typically go to an organisation, you might do the same role for a whole week. You were talking about the different roles within an organisation, Richard. So we talk about the roles that exist, and we give students the opportunities to spend time within each of those roles, and then choose sort of a day where they would spend permanently on that one. So that's been really successful, and something that I think, you know, people have really benefited from. Yeah. Because you don't necessarily know. You might know that you want to work, I don't know, in a finance team, and actually you spend that day in the finance team, you spend a day, you know, in the customer service team on the phone, or in the technical team, or in the marketing team, or, you know, behind a studio desk, and actually your whole outlook completely changes, and you decide that you want to do something completely different. So yeah, it's been interesting, and we take that feedback and we look to improve what we do.
Anybody got any questions for any of our panellists before we keep going? No, we're all right so far. Richard, the one thing I was going to say, and we're concentrating very much here talking about younger people, but there's also an issue, isn't there, that's come out through not just chamber surveys, lots of surveys, about the importance of trying to engage people at maybe towards the other end of the employment spectrum, who've fallen off the radar, maybe they're no longer in full-time employment, 50 pluses, those people who've got masses of experience, but they either don't want to work full-time at the moment, or they're just not. Engaging with them is just as important, isn't it?
Very much so, yes, and as if by magic, we are working on a feasibility study at the moment to try and coordinate a link between businesses and this marketplace of effectively untapped talent that is out there. And you know, whatever we put in place will be available to everybody, of course it will. But there are a vast number of people who change their relationship with the workplace through COVID for varying reasons, and have taken decisions to to stay away from the workplace, join the black economy and wash cars and cut lawns or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of people out there with a great experience and terrific skill sets that need and could be tempted back into the workplace. The research that we're doing is showing that people aged, and some of it would be no surprise, but people aged between 50 and 59 are more likely still to be carrying a fairly significant debt. And therefore they are a greater opportunity as far as attracting them back into the workplace. But it's also quite interesting when we look at some of the other research that's come through to us, where, for example, the average age of an HR department employee is 30. And through the research, it's shown that those people, 22% would think about actively trying to recruit somebody from the more senior age group.
So there's a massive untapped market there.
So it can be driven by, of course, the job role itself, but and I don't think it's a conscious discrimination. I think it's just a situation where they are of an age demographic that actually that's what appeals to them. If you move up to an HR department with an average age of 45 to 55 within the HR department, there are 68% of them actively seek to look for people in those more senior years who can bring that whole wealth of experience. So there's a really interesting piece of work coming out with this, and what we also know is there's a dramatic need for flexibility, and we've talked about flexibility here. I think it's important as well at this point just to say that, of course, we must remember that 92% of the Shropshire business community is 10 employees and less. Their ability to be flexible quite often is somewhat challenged compared to some of the larger organisations, because they're all hands-on and multitasking as it is. But no, the research I think is coming out with some really interesting points. There is a lot of people out there who we can get back into the workplace, I'm sure, with a whole raft of talent. They actually have doubts that they have the skill sets now to meet the needs of employment some 3 years down the line after the initial COVID bit, which I think they need to be encouraged. And there may be some transferable skill information that we need to develop from that. But it is a really important piece of work because we have so many businesses who are just so short of people still. And you know, there's the two solutions. You either work with what you've got and improve it, upskill it rapidly, or you find new recruits. And you know, this talent pool is out there. It's hard to reach because it's actually what I would term off-grid. You know, it's not. They don't claim benefits. They're kind of doing their own thing. They're not advocates of too much social media. That's come through. We found 25% of people in those age demographics are on Instagram, 22% are on Facebook. So whilst that's an opportunity, there's a whole lot that somehow we have to find them. And I think what we've learned is there's community groups out there that these people are involved with or participate in. And it's engaging with those community groups and trying to get that word of mouth.
So word of mouth is the
most important thing, isn't it? It's a really strong message. You know, if somebody comes along and says, "Come and work for Aico because I do and they're great," that's a great endorsement.
And Debbie, I mean, you know, from a manufacturing and engineering point of view, keeping skills that people have learnt through the decades to pass down to the next generation, I've heard many times when I've spoken to employers, is seen as so important. But then I guess as well with some of the things that you're doing, technology is coming forward in such leaps and bounds that the kind of role that somebody who's a 50-something would be doing compared to the equivalent young person today, it's like a car mechanic, isn't it? You know, you plug a diagnostic into a car now instead of knowing what every little bit does. Where are you on the sort of, you know, the older employees and their roles?
We have apprentices from all walks of life, to be honest, all different age groups. We don't specify sort of, you know, age for apprenticeships. We've had some more mature apprentices come through recently because they want to retrain and, you know, can't afford to go back to university because they have families or, you know, other commitments, so that they come through the apprenticeship route. So we have that quite a lot, and we're very open to that. I think it's looking at people as a whole, not just the age, and you know, like you said, they bring different sort of maturity levels, and we just make sure that, you know, everyone's welcome, really.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Lots of food for thought there, but on the whole, lots of positives still, and it's important to talk up the positive side of the employment of young people in the workplace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Richard, Matt, Debbie, thank you very much. Can we say thank you very much?